Okay, here is Chasing Colton. And Colton is a 16 hand, 4-year-old thoroughbred gelding by Leo Frick. Hopefully, I'm saying that right. And that is out of a Candy Ride line. And he's out of a he's out of a Rockport Harbor mare. So he's a well-bred gelding. He sticks exactly 16 hands on the dot. He's quite a chunky guy. Obviously, he's just been off the track for about a week since I picked him up last weekend. And he's in great shape. He looks lovely, and he's gonna fill out a bunch more, obviously. So he's quite a chunky horse. He had 24 career starts, which is quite a bit for a 4-year-old. But I will say his legs are just absolutely squeaky clean. There's not a hair out of place. All his joints look clean and tight and all that good stuff. He made $122,000 on the track, which isn't bad. And he last raced the end of May on 528. So he's been here for about a week. And I'll tell you one thing that is funny about these racehorses is that, obviously to be a racehorse, they're broke to ride. That goes without saying. And I love that about them, of course. However, just because they're a racehorse does not mean that they actually know how to steer. And it must be quite an interesting ride for their exercise riders and jockeys when they get on these horses that don't steer. Like how this horse could race 24 times and not be able to steer is a hilarious mystery to me. But that is where we find ourselves. So I've actually ridden him quite a few times. Well, when I say quite a few times, a handful of times. I think this is the fourth time I've sat on him. And it kind of worked out because Billy was traveling the last 2 days picking up a horse in Ohio for us. So there's nobody here anyway to video. So it was just sort of convenient. He just needed a couple of slow rides, getting used to turning left and right and, going where you would like him to go, which is just so funny. And it's not rocket science, but it just, you can only go at the pace at which they want to go. So he's getting it now. I'd say now he's catching on. We've got some momentum. I can generally steer him. Going large around the ring is much easier than doing, what you hope to be 20-meter circles, but they're not necessarily circles or exactly the size you're shooting for. You got to be flexible in what you're asking for. It's very funny. You just have to have a sense of humor about it. But I will say, though steering is something we're working on acquiring, he's actually way quieter than I thought he was going to be. When he first came off the track, he was just sort of pent up because he hadn't really been doing anything for the last couple of weeks since his last start. So I think he was just fit and pent up, and he just seemed like he was going to be a handful on first impression. And now over the course of the last week, that is so obviously not the case. Every day he just seems more mellow, more mellow. And to ride him, honestly, he really just wants to sort of plop around. He's not like some, big moving, excitable horse. He really seems to me like he's going to just continue to mellow. And he certainly takes quite a bit of leg to continue on. And I think that's a great thing, right? Because it would be much more difficult if he was a pocket rocket and also didn't steer in any particular direction. So the fact that he's quite quiet natured and he's not going anywhere faster than I intend for him to go actually makes acquiring steering much easier. And in general, it just makes him an easier horse to ride and amateur friendly and all those things. Of course, when I say amateur friendly, I mean amateur friendly to amateurs who have experience working with young and green horses, who don't mind installing all the buttons starting at the very beginning with steering. Of course I've started, but when you get him in a new place in a new environment, he's probably going to act the first time that you ride him in that place like he's forgotten all over again, and so you'll have to sort of just be able to take it and roll with it. That being said, though, he has absolutely no naughty behavior whatsoever. I don't sense any silliness or any sort of reactivity coming from him. He seems very, very simple. And the first simple task is he must learn to steer. Actually, sort of hilariously, generally, when they don't steer well, the canter is, of course, the hardest thing because that's your most sort of forward moving gait. But actually, he was easier in the canter than he is in the trot, which is just sort of doesn't really mean anything. It's just an interesting thing to note. And he actually has a really cute, balanced little canter. I thought that the trot's sort of average. It's not spectacular. It's not horrid. It's just your average trot. And of course, as he gets straight and then he figures out the softness and all that, it will improve. But the canter is actually really cute and compact and balanced and just very comfortable. So I was very happy about that. You can see here we're having some steering woes down there at that end of the ring. And so he's just in a very simple 5-inch full cheek snaffle with the peanut. It's generally my go-to for the green beans that don't think that they can turn left or right. He actually is pretty symmetrical to the left and the right, speaking of which. We haven't really gotten to anything past steering yet, so I'm not really asking him to be round. He's not really in a place yet where he can either, like fathom to answer that question. If anything, actually, I want him off the bridle because I want him to figure out his own balance. He has to be responsible for him before we can start this conversation about the contact and connection and all of that. So for whatever reason, because he is pretty symmetrical to the left and the right, he just prefers to pick up the right lead right now. So we use the pole to get the left lead, which is no big deal. That was actually a pretty good turn for him. Yeah, so he gets a pat on the neck. So, my overall assessment of Colton is, and again, I've ridden him several times now, so I feel like I have a pretty good handle on him, is that he's just a very simple horse, and you're really starting from scratch. It's cracks me up that this horse could run 24 races and hardly steer, but you don't actually have to steer to be a racehorse. But in his next career, he does need to. So that is where we are beginning. But he has a really lovely canter. He has a great brain. He's not hot. He's not reactive. And actually, he's really sweet and easy to be around on the ground. He stands great on cross ties. He's been super for all the things. He loads well. I picked him up from the track myself, so I can attest to the fact that he loads well. He travels well. He absolutely loves peppermints. Haven't been able to get him to eat a cookie yet, but he will do anything for a peppermint. And yeah, he's just been very easygoing on the ground.